wrap up this series that we've been doing called Soulcare. And speaking of getting out of town and all of that, it makes me remember when I was a kid, taking road trips with my parents and family, just like I'm sure many of you did. So I'd get in the car, and my sister and I would be in the back. My dad would be driving, usually. My mom was riding shotgun, so my dad's job was to obviously operate the vehicle and keep that thing running right. And my mom was the navigator, right? She was the guide, because this, of course, was before, fancy phones with maps on them. It was just, you're lucky if your phone, you could push buttons on it. There was the turn thing. I never understood that. But anyway, and so my dad would be driving, and my mom would have this map, this just pages and pages, lines everywhere. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Okay, Thomas Guide, woo, okay. I guess that was it, I don't know. Yes, and she would, be turning and looking, finding where they were going. And I just have these great memories, of my dad, getting worried, a little frustrated because he's getting closer to where he knows he's got to make a change, exit on something. And he's like, okay, what's the exit? Where am I going? She's like, I'm trying to find it, flipping the pages, and it was just great, and then she'd usually come through. My mom was good. She'd usually come through with, okay, take exit. And she would guide him, tell him where to go. And it got me thinking, though, that it's actually exactly how our navigation systems work now. Right, so when I'm going someplace, like you, I take out my phone, I open up Maps, right? I'm sure you do this, whatever phone you have, whatever version, but you open up Maps, you punch in the address, and you press directions, right? And then on mine, it shows me where I am and where I'm going, and blue line, right? How to get there. And so what I like to do is as I stop right there. That's what I do. And then I drive the vehicle, and I look at that every now and then I drive. And and then my phone times out, so that's annoying, and then I've got to open it back up, and then it refreshes the map, so all a little bit annoying. But I like to contribute a little bit to arriving at my destination. So I feel like that's all I'm going to give myself is this map with the blue line. And what I'm missing out on is the voice of my mom telling me where to go. And so often what happens is I'm going along, and of course I'll go too far. I'll miss my turn, right? I'll pass it up. I'll go the wrong direction. I'll be like, oh, left. Got it, upside. Then it's a right, whatever. And I'll figure it out, and then I'll have to turn around and go back and or reroute, rerouting you, and then take a new way there because I miss it. And my kids say this, Dad, there's a big green button right there that says go. And if you push that button, she talks to you. She tells you, and I'm like, my mom? Nope, the lady in your phone. Whoever this lady is, nobody knows. She tells me, she'll tell you where to go. In 3 miles, take exit 17, in 500 feet, turn right. You don't have to worry if you're looking at it upside down. Is it right, left? She tells you all these things. And can I just be honest with you today? I don't like to press go. I don't like it. I don't like it a bit. You know why? Because all the guys in here just trying to get a little someone on my side. No, I want to contribute to getting to my place, and my pride keeps me from pressing that button. I don't want some lady telling me everything that I'm supposed how to get there. What am I, an idiot? I don't know how to start the car, put it in reverse, out of your driveway. I know what I'm doing. Just thank you, give me a blue line, I'll find it from there. Except I usually don't. I'm often missing it and having to turn around and screwing it all up. And it's like, Dad, big green button, just press go. Works every time. It's great. Your phone doesn't even have to time out. You don't need to refresh anything. It works, Dad, it works. So I am working on that. But as we wrap up the series, that's exactly what I want to end with, what I want to talk about today. Is just spend a few minutes with you on this question of what is guiding your soul. What is the thing that is actually guiding, directing your soul? We've spent the past several weeks talking about our soul in different ways that we can attend to and care for our souls. And just want to end with this thought of what is guiding it. Because all of us have something that is guiding or shaping our souls, right? Everybody does. There's something that's shaping and forming who you are becoming as a person. There is something that's guiding your soul. The question is just, what is guiding your soul? That's affecting who you're becoming. And I say that because when we say the word soul, that's really what we're talking about, like who you are as a person, all of you. It's not so much that you have a soul, it is as much as that you are a soul, right? You are a living being. This word soul, we get it from the Hebrew word nephesh, which literally means throat, like everything like going in and out of us. And if you cut the throat, right? I mean, the life, you're dead, the life leaves, you can't live with that. So often the word soul is just translated to life, right? It refers to your whole being, all of the parts in you that make you you. All of them. And we all have a lot of parts in us, right? I mean, you've got a heart and will and emotions and thoughts and spirit and all this stuff in you that makes you who you are. That is you. Together, that is your soul. It's your whole being. And really, your soul then, you can say, is the deepest part of you. Why? Because it integrates and aligns all of the parts that make you, you. So I made a picture for you. Actually, Joe did. Thanks, Joe. And I just picked a few basic things that we read in Scripture all the time. So I'm not trying to nail, temperament and personality. I mean, some of that stuff's embedded in this, but here we go, real quick. Especially in biblically speaking, right? We read about mind, heart or spirit, body, so all the time in Scripture. So let's go in the middle with heart there, right? In the ancient world, the heart was the core of the person. They didn't think of it so much as like the center of like emotions or feelings like we often do. They thought of it more as your heart is the core of who you are. It is your life force, which to a degree, in a way, I mean, I guess we do that too, but it is your life force. And spirit is often used interchangeably with heart because your spirit is unembodied power in you, right? So our will is often also put in that area, right? I mean, we even use the word willpower, right? How we do things, the power, the ability, the life force in us. And then mind up above there, of course, is thoughts, but in the ancient world, the mind was the place for thoughts and feelings. It all resided there. And then the physical body is your personal little kingdom that you're responsible for, that has the agency to carry out all the stuff that's going on in your spirit or heart or your mind that you're thinking and feeling, and all that's happening. Your body is what animates all that, right? Kind of brings that out. And then there's an arrow there that's pointing up to soul, and I kind of did a circle there with the soul around that, showing that the soul's job is to bring integration and alignment of all these parts of us under the direction of the soul. So we could say that your life is under the direction of your soul. So, same question, ask you again. What is guiding your soul? What is guiding it? Because something definitely is. And I was curious what people look to guide their soul. So I looked up. I thought, what are people looking to guide their souls? And here's some things that I found. Some people said coincidence. That's what guides me. Some said karma. Some said dreams, right? Like that's my reality now. Some said obstacles, which I found very interesting, right? Kind of like the road less traveled thing, like, oh, there's a challenge there, there's an obstacle, but rather than avoiding it, nope, I need to overcome that thing. That's where I need to go. Interesting. Some said a sudden change of feelings, just like a quick, that is what I look to guide my soul. And then they said, someone said hiccups. And I think they meant it. Because someone commented and said, this is what they said about why hiccups guides their soul. They said, call me religious. Not sure I was thinking of that word. Call me religious, but when you hiccup, our religion says so. I don't know what that is. Someone is remembering or missing you. I had hiccups one time, and I came to know that my sister was calling me. That's fantastic. Maybe hiccups is what guides your soul. Let's look at some other options. Let's just look at other options, okay? At least let me put them on the table, and we'll see what happens. So in Luke, we have this story that Jesus gives. I want us to read it. And here's your job. As I read this, you can't check out. As we read this, I want you to be looking for what is guiding this person's soul. What's guiding it, okay? Here we go. And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. And there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take it easy. Eat, drink, be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life or soul will be demanded from you. Then you will get what you have prepared for yourself. This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God. So, this man in the story, what is guiding his soul? What is guiding his soul? He had lots of possessions, right? He had these fields that bore all these crops, right? But I don't think that's guiding his soul. I think he's filling his life with those things. Kind of like if you were here a few weeks ago, what Nate talked about when he had all the well and all the stuff that we fill our lives with. He was filling his life with that, but what was guiding his soul? Go back one slide to the first one. We'll try this hour. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I don't have a place to store this up. This is what I'll do. I'll tear down bars. I'll build bigger ones. I'll store my stuff. And I'll say to myself, take it easy. Who's guiding him? Himself. Yeah, himself. That's exactly right. Sometimes this is what we do. We go through life and we guide ourselves. And what happens to him? That's what happens to him. A lost soul is a soul guided by self. Jesus says, you have all this, you're guiding, but you're a fool because tonight your life ends for whatever reason. I don't know, it ended and it's over, it's gone. You have nothing. A lost soul is a soul that is guided by self. And why this bothers me so much and should maybe bother you too is because I think it's so easy for all of us to do this at times, for all of us to fall into this place where we ourselves become our own guides. We start saying to ourselves, I will do this and I will do that and I know what's best and I will store up and I will take it easy and I will. And we are not meant to be our own guides. When we are our own guides, when when ourselves start to do that, you know what happens to those parts inside? They start to become disintegrated and misaligned. So I'll show you a horrible picture now of what happens. This is not where we want to get. This is a picture, right, of the self that is guiding our lives. And look what happens to the mind, right? Remember our one arrow on the last one? Now our mind is divided. And you'll read various passages in Scripture where it talks about a divided mind, right? So our mind's like, I promised I'd be home at 5 for dinner. I've got to stay one more hour at work. And it's just too important. I have to stay at work another hour and finish this. I promised that I want to be faithful to my wife. I'm gonna fantasize about this person and this affair over here. I want to be a person of integrity and live right, but I've got to cut these corners because I know then I can get ahead in this area. I want to live healthy and eat healthy, but man, grandma only makes this pie on Thanksgiving. Once a year, I got to get a third piece. Who ate the last piece? And our minds are they're split, and we start living in different directions. And our soul starts to become lost in all of it. Our heart, one of the worst arrows up there, it just turns back on itself, right? Instead of being directed outward, it just loops back onto itself. So here's what this means, okay? Here's what it means. Instead of a heart that has the outward desires that we should have, right? Desires and interests that God wants us to have. We circle back and we're just living for our own desires and our own interests. And we just care about our own things. And we just care about ourselves. And all that really matters is what I want. My desires. And our body, that arrow's pointing to the heart because what happens with our bodies is that we start to pick up habits and behaviors that start to get so deeply embedded into our physical bodies that our body starts to take over our heart. Let me tell you something. Your body was never meant to be the master over the rest of you. Right? Your heart, your spirit, your will that all reside together in that place, they are the ones that are meant to be telling the body, right, what to do and how to act and how to live. But when the habits and behaviors and practices become so embedded, maybe even become addictions, our bodies say, I don't care what the will wants. Right? I don't care what the spirit wants. I don't care what the heart may be even asking for. I will tell you what we are doing. And the body becomes the master over the heart. This is a misaligned, disintegrated, lost soul. It reminds me of a time I asked, Colton asked if he could go somewhere. He needed to take my Jeep. He drove it, took it, and when he came back, I said, hey, how'd it go? He said, everything was fine, except I had to crank the wheel to the left just to keep that thing on the road because your alignment is so far off, it wanted to go up on the sidewalk and off into no man's land. And he's not wrong, first of all. I do need to get that fixed. He's not wrong. But that's what happens, right? When alignment's off on a car, yeah, it goes off. It's going to go, and it's going to go off who knows where and get lost. And when we are misaligned, we can go off very badly and get lost. So let's just leave that up there for a second. Let's just pause here for a second. Just pause. Is that a picture of your soul right now? And I hope it isn't. I hope it isn't. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a much better version of that, but not quite the other version. Not quite in nice, neat alignment, right? None of us are perfect, of course. So maybe you're like, yeah, I've got a little bit going on there. And yeah, I can kind of see that, and that's not there yet, but I can see where it could go in that direction, sure. Right? These are things to be aware of. Is that where you are? Man, when I was early in high school, wow. Yeah, that was me. And guess what? I was exactly what that results in. Very, very lost, right? Very lost. Do you know someone? Does someone come to your mind right now? A brother, sister, a son, daughter, family member, friend, coworker, that you would say, man, that kind of seems like where their soul is right now. They're being guided by themselves primarily. And yeah, they are just all over the place internally. And they are off the grid, off the map. They are lost. They are a lost soul. I mean, a lost soul isn't just something that happens right at the end of life. I mean, yeah, that's true, yes. But a lost soul is something that we can see and experience right now, today, right? So what can we do about this? What's a much better way to be guided by this? So turn over to Mark, or I'll have it up on the screen. I want to look at a passage where Jesus gives us some help and some wisdom and some guidance, literally, on this. So Mark 8, verse 31, we'll start here. He then began to teach them being his disciples, that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about all this, and Peter thought it a good idea to himself to take him aside and to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." So real quick here, you see how Peter puts the self at the center, right? So he hears Jesus say, hey guys, just so you know, I'm going to suffer and I'm going to be rejected and I'm going to be killed. And then I'm going to come back 3 days later. And Peter thought it was a good idea to say, Jesus, can I talk to you off to the side for a moment? You know, I know that I just saw you heal that guy's deafness and blindness. That was awesome. And I just watched you and even participated in you taking a few loaves of bread and a couple of fish and feed thousands of people until they were full. And we had leftovers. But I find it necessary for me to rebuke you, the person that just did all those things. And Jesus is like, nope, you got it pretty wrong, Peter. You're thinking of yourself first, right? But Jesus, didn't I hear you say you're going to suffer, you're going to be rejected, you're going to be killed, right? I mean, self-care is really going to take off in a couple thousand years, Jesus. All you got to do right now is just like get the tiniest little bit of it going on here. He says, no, you're thinking in a way where you're allowing what yourself to guide you. Let me give you a better thing to guide you. So he says this. He called the crowd to himself along with his disciples, and he said to them, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny who? Themselves. No, Peter, you need to deny yourself, Peter. Don't be guided by yourself and take up your cross and follow me. Why? Because of exactly what we are talking about today. Whoever wants to save their life or their soul will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel, then you will save it. What good is it for someone, like we read in Luke, to gain the whole world, but they forfeit their soul? What can you give in exchange for your soul? Nothing. Nothing. Jesus says, my advice is you need to deny yourself. Don't be guided by it. That will lead you astray. Deny yourself and sacrifice whatever you need to sacrifice. Man, now for them, when Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me, he meant it quite literally. Quite literally. He was about to do that. Some of those early Christians, they'd go on crosses, they would die by Roman crucifixion as well. But for us today, we at least have to read that and say, okay, that's probably not going to happen to us, but we at least need to read it, at least, and say, okay, Jesus, it sounds like you're clearly saying that I should deny myself, sacrifice something, and follow you, allow you to guide me. And I just want you to take this home with you today, this weekend. It's the key point of this talk today, and just take this with you if nothing else. Your soul is meant to live for God, not for yourself. I know it sounds so simple, but don't let that diminish it in any way. Your soul is meant to live for, to be guided by God, not yourself. And we often want to step in and start guiding ourselves. So can I just give you a few quick closing thoughts on how, or ways to have our soul be guided by God. So here's one. When it comes to our heart, surrender it. This great verse in Proverbs, right? I'm sure some of you have it up in your house somewhere. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't rely on your own insight or guidance. In all of your ways, acknowledge him, and he will guide you. He will make straight your paths. Surrender your heart. Maybe you're in a place, or you know someone, or you're there where you're resisting God, you're fighting against him, and that's exhausting, right? I mean, when we're resisting God and we're kind of struggling with him on something, that's exhausting to our heart, right? To our spirit. I can only fight for so long. Or maybe you're like, no, I'm not there at all. I'm not resisting and fighting God. I'm with him. I'm for him. But I want to do a little bit on my own to get there. I want to contribute to arriving at my destination. And let me tell you, I get it. I know what you mean, right? You just can't get yourself to press that big green button that says go. You just can't quite do it because because of your pride, just like me, you want to do something to get yourself there. That's exhausting. And your heart, your willpower may be very low. Your spirit may feel very crushed. And can I just tell you what your heart is always ready to do? What your spirit will do effortlessly, surrender. Can I tell you what your heart will say to you if you choose to surrender? And we all have to do this. And this isn't a one-time thing, right? There's a sense in which there's a moment maybe where if you don't know God, there's a one-time moment of surrendering. But we always have ways and areas in our hearts that we need to surrender something to God, to turn it over to him, right? So this idea of surrendering your heart, something we all have to do repeatedly. But when we do that, your heart says, thank you, because man, I was getting pretty exhausted, right? Your spirit says, yes, it's about time, because I was feeling pretty crushed and pretty low and pretty worn out. Surrender your heart to God. Here's a second thing to take home with you to think about is to renew your mind. Paul says in Romans 12:2, don't be conformed to this world, be transformed by the renewing of your minds so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Paul knew the importance of renewing our minds back then. When the only way you heard or received a message is like the way I'm giving it to you right now, minus the screens, audibly. One guy in the entire tribe would have something written on a piece of paper, and there were no other forms of communication. Think about how many ways, how many voices are coming at us, how many messages all the time, right? We are bombarded. You are bombarded with messages about everything all the time, through all the different venues and ways and things and technologies. So how important is it for us to renew our minds so that they are aligned properly under our soul? And the last one is this: discipline my body. In 1 Corinthians 9:26, Paul says, I do not run aimlessly, nor do I box as though beating the air, but I punish my body. And look what he says, enslave it, so that after proclaiming to others, I myself might not be disqualified. Paul knew the importance of our physical bodies and of them being enslaved to our spirit as opposed to our spirits being enslaved to our bodies. Because when those deep-seated habits and behaviors and practices, when they get deep in our physical bodies, and sometimes they become addictions, the body takes over and it becomes master. And he's just saying, I just know that's just not how this works. That's not how a soul is found and integrated and aligned and following God the way it's meant to do. If I don't discipline my body, I will end up with a lost soul. A lost soul. And I don't know what that was for Paul. I don't know what he's referring to. I love that he says that, because what that tells me is that he struggles with things just like you and I do. It means that he's tempted with things just like you and I are. It means that he's got to keep his physical body in check just like we do. So I love that, right? I mean, he gets it. I don't know what that is for him. He's a single guy. Maybe he's referring to his sexuality. Maybe he's referring to his sexuality and his purity and wanting to keep that in check. I don't know. He doesn't tell us, but I do know that he knows and understands and says, I discipline myself, is what I believe he means by I punish my body. I discipline it, right? Intensely, so that it will not take over the rest of me and my life becomes all disintegrated and all misaligned and off course and lost. So my closing question for you today is just simply this, going back to what Jesus said, what do you need to deny in yourself so that your soul can live for God? Is there a thought in your mind, a way of thinking that you need to deny? Is there a desire in your heart that you need to deny so that you can live for God? Is there a habit, a behavior in your body that you need to start to deny so that you can live fully for God, the way your soul is meant and designed to live? God will guide you exactly where you need to go to become the exact person he has created and made you to be. As we sang about before, he loves us better and more than anyone else. He will guide your soul. He will care for your soul better than anyone else. He will keep your soul and hold it and protect it better than anyone else. Your soul will always be found in him. It will never, ever be lost when God is guiding our souls.